if you drink too much alcohol, you vomit. It's your body telling you that it's poison and shouldn't be in there.
When you first gave up alcohol, what were the initial challenges that you would experience?
The way that I describe it initially is like being under house arrest in your own body. I found that you really have to face your demons.
Yeah.
In terms of my attention, energy, and focus is a lot greater now that I don't drink. And so when I do things like exercise, I can do it more efficiently. Your body's not, wasting or expelling energy on recovering or repairing itself. You just get that extra kick up.
Your skin is the largest organ in your body, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And your gut plays such a big part in like how your skin can look. If you're giving your gut poison, which is what alcohol is, how do you think your skin's going to turn out, right?
Yeah.
Tim, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Your journey to living an alcohol-free lifestyle and doing the 75 hard challenge now ongoingly is so inspiring. So my first question is, what led you to make such significant life changes?
Oh, that's a big question. It started a number of years ago, maybe 6 years ago now. And I was, I just got to a point where I was really unhappy with my life. Probably more unhappy with myself. This is really jumping straight in, isn't it?
Go for it.
But yeah, I got to a point where I really didn't like the person I was. And I found myself at a bit of a crossroads of going, something's got to change, or this isn't a life worth living, pretty much. And so it's been a really long path of small incremental changes. It certainly wasn't an overnight switch, but I wanted to be proud of the person that I was and the person that I was presenting. So that's what made me start making those changes for myself. Yeah.
What was your life back then, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah. Oh, so it was probably when I was like 23, 24. I left high school and then I just had like nothing to offer. So like, to put it bluntly, like I hadn't really done or achieved anything. Even at a young age, I just felt like I wasn't contributing anything to society, anything positively. And I just had such a low self-worth and self-esteem. And yeah, that just accumulated over a number of years from my youth. And then, I was living in London at the time. And yeah, I was just kind of doing stock take on my life. And I was like, this is pathetic, for a lack of better words. And like, I wasn't working, didn't really have like much going for myself. Yeah, it was really sad.
What was your lifestyle like then? As in, like, when we look at diet, activity, alcohol consumption, like what was it like?
The normal life. Yeah, like it's so much easier looking back looking back in on the lifestyle, because at the time I wasn't really cognitive of it, but I ate food when I was hungry and I ate whatever was readily available, and that could have just been highly processed. Like, a meal could have been a bag of Doritos or a packet of M&Ms or a Coke, or it just wasn't meals. Like, I just would eat kind of on the go. So like, my diet primarily was highly processed sugary foods. I was drinking not a lot. I'd probably say the common amount for like a young 20-year-old that we would see. Like, I didn't have an alcohol addiction. And I was doing hard drugs. So like,
Wow.
And so that mix, and I was kind of exercising, but in the form of like very low pressure weights with like no real training structure. And when you look at it at that recipe, you're like, well, no wonder you're depressed and anxious. Like, and that's how I look at my life. Like, looking back, I'm like, well, go figure. Like, you're not doing anything to help your system. And that's when, I was looking in the mirror and I was like, this is miserable.
You've spoken about the mental element.
Yeah.
You were suffering from depression. You didn't feel good mentally.
Yeah.
Didn't feel happy.
Yeah.
What was the physical like? So what did you actually look like in that point? Were you still looking good?
No, I wasn't. And like I've always been like for lack of a better words, like skinny fat.
Yes,
which is like
it's a thing.
Yeah. And so I never had a weight issue, but my body composition was not great. Just really soft, like for lack of better words, like just I just existed. Like I really was just like it's so bad, but like, yeah, I was just a potato. Like I just like rotted in bed and sat on the couch and played video games and
Wow.
just like a completely different person. Yeah, I wouldn't recognize myself.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
really different.
So what was that what was that turning
Self-talk,
point?
like?
No, what
Yeah.
was the turning point? That's what I want to know is like,
Oh, yeah.
did you just one day just like say, I am so effing over this and I need to make a change? Or like, what was that first?
There was certainly like a moment, and I had a New Year's Eve in Amsterdam, which you could probably imagine what that looked like. And I had met a girl called Raluca, and she was Italian, and she wasn't drinking. And to me at that time, I was probably 24. And to me, that was like meeting someone from another planet. I never even heard, I was like, what do you mean you don't drink? You're not drinking tonight? She was like, no, I never drink. And I was like, and I couldn't comprehend it. I probably had met people that didn't drink, but I wasn't aware of it. But yeah, that conversation was planted the seed. And then the hangover that I had from that night was diabolical and catastrophic. And I remember watching a video, like a TED talk, a couple days after that. And after that New Year's Eve, I couldn't sleep. I couldn't go to the toilet. Like my body was just at its end, I think. And then I watched this video, and this guy, this TED talk, someone could probably find it, but it was he was saying that people who have like issues with substances can't bear to be present in their life. And that hit me in my chest. I went, whoa, like that really resonates with me. And the reason I think why I was drinking and partying so much is because I was so unhappy. And it was the only thing that stopped me thinking or stopped me from having to live in the reality that I created for myself. And so I drank. And I drank really well, and I partied really well. And that gave me 4 hours, 5 hours of going, oh, like I can have fun. And
it's a
I can stop.
reality, right?
It's a complete warped reality. And then I dealt with the consequences for the next 4 days until I started doing it again.
Yeah.
And then that just became the rinse and repeat. Thankfully, that period was very short-lived. Like it wasn't, when it was bad, it wasn't bad for very long, but it was probably bad for about 6 months.
Yeah.
And it's really a really shameful part of my story, but then it's also played a very pivotal part of my story.
Absolutely.
And so I hope that's as low as it ever gets, because it was really bad.
And you do sometimes need to experience that low to get yourself to the best version of you, right?
Yeah. And so then the habit change went, okay, I don't want to drink for a month. And then that snowballed. So that went for 3 months to 6 months to now almost 6 years. And I can attribute that to all of the positive changes that have happened in my life. It's for sure connected to that moment, 100%.
Do you think you'll ever drink again?
I get asked that question all the time. Who knows? Forever's a very long time. And I say for myself right now, I know that not drinking alcohol is really working for me. Absolutely. But ever again, who knows? I mean, sometimes I joke that I'll drink when I'm mortgage free, but like, who knows when that might be? But like, yeah, right now it's a big no. Yeah.
Are you anti-alcohol?
It's interesting. Like, I love alcohol culture. I know that sounds very contradictory, but like I find like alcohol culture and partying culture very funny and entertaining. I'm sure most people do. But then there's another part of me that's had to be very, particularly online, very subdued in how I preach about not drinking, because it is such a shameful part of people's identities. And I think I've had to be very steady with that because I don't want to shame people into not drinking, or for people to feel shame for their drinking, because I've felt that and it's not good. And if I had listened to this podcast 6.5 years ago, I would have thought I was a prick. Like, and I would have gone, oh, shut the fuck up. Yeah. Alcohol culture is probably one of the biggest myths sold to people. You've probably heard that alcohol is the only substance that you have to defend yourself for not partaking in.
Oh, yeah.
And I find that still true. And I'm surprised by the amount of criticism I do get. I don't get a lot, but I get some criticism from people who feel very threatened when I speak about not drinking. And I've spoken about not drinking maybe 3 times online, and it's not my brand identity. It's not my content strategy, but like, I think maybe people have to confront their own demons when I talk about it.
Yeah.
And so I hope today, if you're listening, I hope today is a constructive conversation, because I've really felt the shameful side of drinking, and I still feel the shameful part of my drinking past, but it was the catalyst for a lot of growth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I barely drink alcohol. I actually went a long period of time not drinking alcohol at all.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, I feel my best when I don't. And even like the one glass of wine or whatever, that one drink that you might have at dinner, you still feel the effects of it the next day. Just because you're not getting drunk, it doesn't mean that it's not impacting your body. It absolutely is.
Yeah.
And so I get it. Like, I've, lived through it. I've had, friends that never really understood why I wouldn't be drinking. I'd go to a party and they'd be like, why are you drinking? Just have one, just one. Like, it doesn't hurt, blah, blah, blah. But it's like,
but that one's not just one.
Yeah. And it just doesn't align with my values right now, but we'll touch on that, because I think handling social situations is a topic on its own.
Yeah.
But what I'd really love to know is, like, when you first gave up alcohol, what were the initial challenges that you would experience?
I think the way that I describe it initially is like being under house arrest in your own body. And I didn't really face too much social pressure or peer pressure from not drinking. A little bit. There was a little bit of commentary from like my coworkers and stuff like that, but nothing negative. I think the most difficult part was having to sit in every feeling that you experience and having to be entirely accountable for your actions. And that made me really consider what I say and do a lot more, because I had nothing to fall back on. And you really have to be responsible for your words and actions, because a lot of people will go, oh, I did that because I was drunk, or I said that because I was drunk, or, I cheated on you because I was drunk, whatever. But when you don't have that excuse, that is the most unsettling thing, because the place where you normally go, you're like, oh, I've had a stressful day at work, I'm going to drink, or I've had a fight with my partner, so I'm going to drink, or, I didn't get that job, so I'm going to go out and drink. And when you don't have that step to go, you go, well, what do? I just have to sit here, or I have to talk it out, or I have to...
You have to lean in.
You have to lean in. And that initially and that took a long time. That took months. And maybe even still, but that's one of the most difficult parts about not having alcohol, because I found that you really have to face your demons head on.
Yeah.
And that's a difficult process for a lot of people, including myself.
Yeah. Well, quitting alcohol has significant effects on like the body and mind, right? And you've touched on it slightly.
Yeah.
What changes did you experience when you quit alcohol?
It's certainly an over time thing, because it's not a Band-Aid. And by no means would I want to pitch quitting drinking as going, it's a cure for depression, it's a cure for anxiety, because it's not. But if you're someone who experiences those things, it's certainly, I find, setting you up for a better day if you're not throwing alcohol into the mix or into your system, because it's a depressant. I know that. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, but we know that it plays with your body functions. And so the changes I've noticed over, almost 6 years, certainly a far calmer nervous system. I'm far more regulated. My moods, I still get sad. I still get happy, but like my mood spectrum has just shrunken into this like far more calm wave, as opposed to these like really erratic high party let's go, or crashing low depressions. And so that's something that I've noticed since quitting drinking, is that everything just kind of came into this kind of nice sound wave of emotions. And also a lot of friendships, like a lot of my new friendships have never known me as a drinker. And so building friendships purely off values or goals or activities is a lot more fulfilling than some friendships you can bond over a big night over, because you can pretty much be friends with anyone when you're drunk.
Oh, yeah. You can be friends with everyone.
Everyone when you're drunk. And so when you don't have that accessory in your night, you're connecting with people for genuine reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really love the points that you touched on, because when we think about not drinking alcohol, people instantly think of like the health benefits, as in like, there's so many health benefits of not drinking alcohol, but they don't think about, your emotions, your social circle, all of the things that you've just mentioned are just so important. And the way that you describe your emotions is exactly what my partner is like.
Yeah.
Like I don't like, running a business, my stress and anxiety levels are so high. And so, it's a roller coaster, and it's a roller coaster of emotions. So I live the highest of the high and then the lowest of the low.
Yeah.
Some days I'm like so happy and like, ecstatic, whatever. And then some days I'm like, oh my God, this is happening. And I feel like my world is crashing. But my partner, I'll say to him, like he'll be going on a trip and I'll be like, are you excited for your trip? Like, when you just excited, he's like, I'm looking forward to it. Like, and his emotions are just so regulated. And I'm like, how do you do that?
It's like, but I could only imagine, and that's just the human experience, right? Like life gets stressful, life gets happy. Like that's just
he doesn't
life.
have those ups and downs like I do.
Throwing alcohol into the mix, it's just going to exacerbate.
Yeah.
I can't say that word.
Yeah.
Those emotions, for better or worse.
Absolutely. And having your emotions just regulated, it's just, it makes a difference.
It just, the flow on effect for approaching everything from work to relationships to friendships to your hobbies. One of my favorite things, to get a bit evangelical about not drinking though, is I think the perception is that you're restricting your life, and that's the like, oh, you're taking something out of your life, right? So you might be missing out on X, Y, Z. If you can shift your mindset to think what you're going to regain or replace that lost time with, if you think about all the time you spend hungover or, lacking motivation or energy, those are those hours that you get back when you go, how did that person have all that time to work on their hobby or their business or train for that marathon? That's the time. Like,
absolutely.
And that's where those people get those hours back in their day. So it's a mind shift change from going, oh, I'm going to miss out on the like late night with my friends, as opposed to I'm going to get in that morning swim, or I'm going to finish my book, or I'm going to do some painting or pottery or whatever your hobby is.
Yeah.
So think of it like that. And that's a great mind shift change if you're thinking about giving up alcohol.
Really good piece of advice.
Yeah.
There's nothing better than waking up on a Sunday fresh and being able to take on the day. My weekends are fantastic. Like I love it, because you actually get so much out of your weekend. Whereas like when you get drunk and you're hungover, you wake up on Sunday at midday, you get Uber Eats, you're in bed watching movies, you don't even see the sun. Sun does not touch your skin. Exactly. Like you are in a full cave.
That's the time that you get back. And sometimes I get asked like, how do you have time? And I'm like, because I'm not out till 2 a.m. on a Saturday night. Yeah. Which is a personal choice. And that's, again, not a shame thing. If you want to do that, you have full autonomy too.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we've spoken about the mindset. Let's talk about what happens to your body when you stop drinking.
I think the mind and body are so connected. And I don't know if I'm doing anything different. I'm not doing anything differently with my body that I wasn't doing when I wasn't drinking. I'm probably just doing it with a greater ability. Like in terms of my attention, energy, and focus is a lot greater now that I don't drink. And so when I do things like exercise, I can do it more efficiently. Or when I'm studying or reading, I can do it more efficiently. And so I don't think there's anything that I'm doing differently with my body. I'm just doing it at a greater ability.
Yeah.
It just gives you that extra 10, 15% more where you're not your body's not, wasting or expelling energy on recovering or repairing itself. You just get that extra kick up. And so it's funny when I see like some like elite or like athletes or elite athletes who still drink, and I'm like, if you're doing this while you're drinking, imagine what you could do when you're not drinking.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because I notice a difference in terms of like, my like gymming and running and all of that since quitting drinking. And so I always wonder, I'm like, how can you, I know some like extreme triathletes and stuff that still get on the piss, and I'm like, you'd be able to do so much more.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You'd end up in the Olympics.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Yeah, but in terms of body, I think that's what I would take away with it is that, just add a little bit more.
Yeah.
Or you get a bit more out of it.
Did you notice any physical changes?
Oh, it's yes. Number one being my skin. And if people like, particularly my girlfriends, be like, "What do you use? What's your skincare?"
Oh, your skin's glowing.
Well, thank you, but I'm like, unfortunately, I think it's attributed to not drinking.
Yeah.
Like, I have a very basic skincare routine. Like, I moisturize, I wash my face, but like, I'm not using like expensive potions and lotions. Like, it's just like, I'm like, unfortunately, I think it's the no alcohol, because when my sisters have both had 3 kids now. My gosh. And like that pregnancy glow. And I'm like, I swear it's because they're not drinking during their pregnancy. Like I think people's skin just radiates when they don't drink. So I think that's probably, people go to great lengths to avoid alcohol and skincare products, but then pour it directly down their throat. I'm like, it doesn't make sense.
Oh, it
doesn't make sense to me. Yeah.
Well, your skin is the largest organ in your body, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And your gut plays such a big part in like how your skin can look. And so if you're giving your gut poison, which is what alcohol is, how do you think your skin's going to turn out, right?
Yeah. I always like, if you drink too much alcohol, you vomit. It's your body telling you that it's poison and it shouldn't be in there. Like if you drink too much of it, you might die. So
So next question. Tell me about what recommendations you could give to our audience about handling peer pressure when it comes to choosing not to drink but still going out to spend time with friends and family.
I think if you're going to continue drinking and peer pressure, there's a couple things that I like to do. One, I've got 3 tips actually for you. Here we go. One is spend the first 30 minutes of an event not drinking. Right? So just because I feel like a lot of people, and I've been guilty of this, you get to an event, you might be nervous and you don't know anyone or you know one person. And so the first thing you do is beeline for the bar and you start drinking as much as you can to get drunk so then you can run around the party and be social, right? So if you can spend the first 30 minutes just like easing into the event, letting your nerves simmer and calm down, my guess is you'll drink a lot less over the course of the night. You're still drinking, but you just like your first drink might be a lemonade or a soda water or something, and then you go, okay, my second drink will be the champagne or the alcohol. So I think that's a good thing. The second thing is, or if you're going to have your first drink alcohol, alternate. So go 1 drink alcoholic, 1 drink non-alcoholic, and then that way over the course of the night you've drunk hopefully 50% less alcohol, but you've still been drinking. And maybe I don't have 3 tips. I thought I had
That's okay.
But those are 2.
Great.
Those are 2 are great.
What about if you're not drinking and you're experiencing peer pressure from your friends?
Yeah, peer pressure. I find peer pressure such projection. Yeah. And I do find it a funny phenomenon because I'm now 30. And so like I find that peer pressure's not as much of a thing anymore. Like I'm lucky that all my close friends know me as a non-drinker. So like I don't really get that heckling. But depends on how confident you want to be, because I would say like you could really throw it back on them and say like, why does it bother you that I'm not drinking? Because then it makes them answer the question. Could take the energy out of the room, but it makes them think like, why is it an issue to you that I'm not drinking? Why does it bother you? Why does it concern you? Because I think, and you've probably experienced the same, have one, just have one.
Just have one.
Just have one. But that always confuses me. And now I see it like, have you ever seen a friend in a bad relationship but they can't see it?
All the time.
Yeah. and
time.
you're like, why are they dating? Like, they're so mean to them. They treat them like shit.
Yeah.
Like, and now stepping out, looking back in, that's how I see some people's relationships with alcohol. And I'm like, oh, they can't see it, but it's quite clear to everyone else that they might have a bad relationship with alcohol. And so for me now, like having matured in this area, like it just reflects on them.
Yeah.
And so hopefully, if you're experiencing peer pressure to drink, try not to take it personally, because it's really just that person that's so uncomfortable with everyone else not drinking.
Yeah.
You're not uncomfortable. Like,
yeah. Do you think that someone who drinks every night, so it's quite common for people to just have a beer with dinner or a glass of wine with dinner, do you think they have a problem with alcohol?
I think if you can't go more than a day with something, you have an addiction. Okay. So I shouldn't laugh. I think for anything, if you couldn't go one day without something, I think you have an addiction.
So I mean, I'm addicted to chocolate.
Very possibly. Yeah. Very possibly. I mean, I've got my, I've got addictions, and
What are your addictions?
I really like video games still. I do love video games, and I try my hardest not to play video games because I just get so consumed by them. I love them.
I was a gamer growing up.
Yeah. What'd you play?
Oh, you don't want to know.
Did you play like The Sims or?
I played everything.
Okay,
Sims.
Age of Empires?
COD. No.
COD?
Yeah, I was a massive gamer. Like,
it's
massive.
addicting, right?
I used to sell accounts online. Like, I was a full. You know what's so funny? Sorry to change the topic, but to touch on gaming, we went to Fiji recently and I downloaded Candy Crush to play on the plane.
It's designed to be addictive, right?
I literally got up to like level 500 and I said to my partner, I'm not playing it. When I get back to Sydney, played it for like a week and I was like, I am deleting this because I can't do it, because any game that I interact with, I'll become addicted.
Yeah, and I'm the same. And I think prior to the 75 Hard Challenge, I think my saddest addiction, also just for I was never addicted to alcohol or drugs. But I'm certainly addicted to sugary foods and like highly processed sugary foods. And I didn't realize it until this year, which made me really sad. Made me really sad because. Do you want to talk about 75?
I was going to say this is a really good segue because I did want to touch on 75 Hard because I know you most recently completed your first round and now you're on
round two,
which is really impressive because what's the success rate? I think like 5% of people
You're kidding.
Something.
Really?
I think I might be making that.
Oh, well, I don't know.
I don't know. Like it wouldn't surprise me, to be honest, because it is very extreme and very intense. So
interesting.
I do want to start this topic by asking what made you embark on this challenge?
Yeah. Well, I entered it very probably naively and blindly. So a person called Harley Campbell came up on my Instagram and he was doing the challenge and I was really enjoying following his story. And then a good friend of mine, Grace, had also wanted to start the challenge. And so we decided to start it together. She didn't complete it. Sorry to shame you, Grace.
I hope Grace isn't listening to the podcast.
She will be. I'm so sorry. But yeah, I looked at the list and I went, okay, it's like it seemed really achievable.
Talk us through the list so everyone knows what we're talking about.
The 75 Hard, it's 2 workouts of 45 minutes per day, one of which has to be outside, 3.7 litres of water, 10 pages of a book, a progress photo, no alcohol, and stick to a meal plan. And that's the challenge. And the first few weeks were a huge adjustment. And the first few weeks I found really difficult, not for the exercise. Obviously, the no drinking was already part of it, but because of the meal plan. And I thought I'd really kind of conquered all of my vices. I mean, before the challenge, I would have said I had no vices. I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, I didn't do drugs. I was a clean boy. And then
were you exercising alone?
Yeah. Or like at least once a day. Yeah. To some degree. And then I got confronted with the kind of snacking and comfort food. And I think snacks replaced alcohol. So when I was talking about the house arrest thing and having to deal with your own consequences and emotions, instead of turning to alcohol, I turned to snacks.
When you say snacks, what are you referring to?
Yes. Oh, bags of Doritos, M&Ms.
You really love your
Oreos.
Doritos and M&Ms. This is the second time you mentioned
yeah,
both.
No, I used to eat them daily, chocolate milk. So yeah, before, for a long time, so even once I quit alcohol, my diet really consisted of pasta, Doritos, M&Ms, Coke, chocolate milk, coffee. That's it, pretty much.
What's your diet consist of now?
Oh, it's really, well, sorry, it's the best it's ever been, I think.
Talk me through it down
so
a plate.
Whole foods now. So I say it's anything that you can harvest or kill. So like all meat. So like, yeah, beef, chicken, fish, and then lots of veggies. So sweet potato and pumpkin and beans and asparagus and broccoli, and lots of fruit, banana, strawberries, blueberries. Yeah, Greek yogurt, oats.
What have you replaced your snacks with?
Fruit. Yeah. Which I couldn't have imagined myself ever saying that. I used to hate fruit, but yeah, like bananas and apples and it's so nourishing and fulfilling. And yeah, my tummy's not in knots, and I don't have afternoon fatigue. And there's so many flow-on effects of that where I went, oh, I just thought that was existing. I just thought that cloudiness was a part of life. I just thought that 3 p.m. I need a nap was everyone.
Yeah. No.
No.
And people don't realize how much of it is driven from your diet.
100%. So I think whole foods, I think the whole foods diet has been probably more revolutionary than the quitting the drinking.
Wow. Okay.
It's hard to say, but I think in terms of, it was great to lose the alcohol, but then to gain all the nutrition has given me so much more.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's a two-prong approach, but both are really important.
What about when you dine out?
Yeah, I'm dining out a lot less. I'm actually quite a notorious tight ass. So I really hate spending more than like $30 on a meal. That to me is like, unless someone else.
You'd hate eating out with me then. And my boyfriend would laugh listening to this.
Unless someone else is paying. If someone else is paying, I'm very happy to go. But for me, I'm like, I just can't stomach paying $30. And that's like going out in Sydney, right? It's so expensive.
Oh, yeah.
Even going to the pub nowadays, like a steak and
a steak special is still $30.
It's so expensive. So if I go out now, challenge, it'll be steak and salad or salmon and salad. And that was also interesting because I went to Vegas during my first round in 75 Hard Challenge, which was going to be my kryptonite because you have to walk past chocolate and candy pretty much on every second store.
Yeah.
And I was really proud of myself for not only sticking to the challenge, but when I'd go out for dinner. So I'd have my breakfast and lunch in my hotel kitchenette, which saved me a lot of money, which I was very happy with. But then I'd go out for dinner, and you actually can eat really well going out.
You can.
And I would always go and look on the menu and be like, oh, what's the naughtiest thing I can pick off this menu? What's the, I don't know, because we're out, it's special. I'll get the triple burger, like cheeseburger or whatever, just because I can. But now I'm like, oh, you actually can get, some chicken breast and some steamed veg, and that exists on most menus.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Which I would have never even looked at.
You just don't look at it, right? You just miss it because you just go to like burgers, nachos, like you just go for like
the
all
enchiladas, and you're like, oh, perfect.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the bowl of nachos, yeah.
Great,
let's do it. So that's really recalibrated my relationship with good nutrition and food. And I would have never have appreciated or acknowledged good nutrition until the 75 Hard Challenge. And so that's been the greatest takeaway from doing it.
It makes the biggest difference. And I say this all the time. My guests say this all the time. What you eat will affect your mood. It will affect your energy. It will affect your sleep. It'll affect your performance. And you don't realize how something so small, but yet you do it 6 times a day, can affect your overall life.
It would be my first point of call, particularly if someone was saying that they're highly stressed or anxious, and it's certainly not the cure for, but if you can do the stock take and go, okay, well, what can I change first before, taking medication? I would look at that first.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
I would look at it first as opposed to not at all, but look at it first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then how are you moving your body?
All of it.
All of it, right?
And I think I've simplified the 75 hard challenge because if you hadn't done it, it can seem extreme. But I guess the challenge is that it's a habit forming challenge. It's not a weight loss challenge. It's not a body transformation challenge. It's a habit forming challenge. And it's to, hydrate you, get you to spend less time on your phone, move your body, and to build a good relationship with nutrition. And so if you simplify it like that, and some people go, I wouldn't have the time to do the 75 hard challenge, which is so understandable, right? You could make a challenge of your own that just goes, okay, every day I'm going to walk to work and I'm going to read my book and I'm going to drink 2 liters of water. And that be your challenge, and do that for 30 days. And and if that's more than you're currently doing, then that'll build healthier habits for your lifestyle. But it doesn't need to be an all or nothing approach. You can't go, I could never approach the 75 hard, so I'm not even going to humor it.
I really like your perspective on it. I think it changes a lot because to a lot of people, exercising twice a day for 45 minutes, so 90 minutes a day, you're eating whole foods or following a meal plan of some sort, drinking nearly 4 liters of water. Like all of these things feel very extreme. But when you look at it as a habit building exercise, it changes the whole lens on it, right?
Yeah, I would hope for that to be the case, because some days I say this online, like some days my 2 exercises are 2 walks. I'm not like balls to the wall, extreme, like 2 HIIT classes a day. Like you can achieve the requirements of the challenge in your own fashion. But again, if you're, it probably takes 3 hours a day to complete the challenge. So if you've got kids or your work hours are, all over the place, I get that it would be hard to do consistently. But if you could set yourself a personal challenge of going something that involves movement, reading and hydration, great.
Yeah.
And just do it consistently.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And so what do you do when it's raining? Because it's raining now in Sydney.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I walk in the rain, and that again is like a task of doing something you don't want to do. It's something that you don't want to do. But the first couple times I did it, I was actually like, oh, this is actually quite pleasant because no one's out. And so like you're kind of just like walking in the rain. Sometimes you have an umbrella, sometimes you have a raincoat. You just either do it with the podcast, or sometimes you raw dog it, as people say, with no headphones. Or sometimes I've got a stationary bike, which I'll put on like a sheltered balcony, which is like outdoors.
Okay, yeah.
That's my like modification of
outdoors.
Yeah,
makes sense.
But yeah, sometimes either running or walking outside in the rain is like actually quite peaceful. It's quite nice.
It is.
Yeah.
And until you get your hair wet and you've just gotten a fresh blow dry and you're like, oh.
I've got a terrible haircut at the moment, so it's not really.
It looks great.
Think about doing the little buzz. Yeah.
So this is now your second round.
Yes.
What has inspired you to take on 75 hard again?
I did it. So I had the week off, which involved a lot of eating of my favorite foods.
Like what? Doritos and M&Ms?
I had the Doritos, had the M&Ms, had the chocolate milk, Indian. I love Indian foods. Had a lot of that. Had a lot of Italian.
So you kind of went on a 1 week binge?
A 1 week binge. Well, what I thought it was just going to be back to life. And I didn't feel great. I felt really sick, and my stomach was in knots, and I had that fog and that cloud return instantly, which could have been either a return to sugar, could have been a return to gluten, all of the above. Didn't return to alcohol. But I didn't feel good, and I liked this sense of accomplishment at the end of every day. And I had all the reminders are set up in my phone. And so at the start of every day, just all the rules pop up on my lock screen, and I get such a great satisfaction of ticking them off every day. I go like, oh, I've done my book, oh, I've done my walk, I've done my gym. So like, I just got to the end of every day and I went, oh, I can accomplish so much more with the time that I've got. So doing it again, it's more of a lifestyle now than doing the challenge again. I think I'm on day 24 now, but like once I knew what was capable in 24 hours for me, I went, why wouldn't I just do it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so maybe that's an addiction. I don't
I think it's self-improvement, right?
Yeah, for sure.
You've discovered this version of yourself that you really love that makes you feel good. So why wouldn't you do all the habits that continue to make you feel that way?
Can I tell you something so sad? Well, actually, it's actually not sad. It's actually so sweet. But on the very, very last night of the challenge, I've got like my my wardrobe is all mirrored. And it was like one of the first times I looked in the mirror and I was like, so proud of you. Is that so sad?
That is so beautiful, though.
No, I looked in the mirror and I was like, I was just so proud of myself.
You've come so
Yeah.
far.
And again, it had nothing to do with the physique. Like, take it or leave it. But I just was like, you've stuck to a promise you made to yourself. And that felt so great. And so I'm sure if you're listening and you wanted to set yourself a 30-day challenge or something and just make it for yourself, the sense of accomplishment was so great. It was so great. And that doesn't involve starving yourself or running 20 kilometers every day. It's not about that. It's going, I've made myself a promise and I've stuck to it. And I trust you. I tell you, there was points in the challenge where, you know, my cafe serves you a little brownie with every coffee you get.
I would stop going there.
and one day I forgot to tell them, don't serve the brownie because I just won't eat it. Anyway, the brownie was sitting there and I was like, well, no one's going to know. No one's going to know.
Did you eat it?
I didn't. No. And again, because I went, I'll know. And again, I couldn't get to the end of the challenge and hold my head up high and go, I did it. Had I broken it? And so I felt so proud of myself.
You were so inspiring. Like, your journey is so inspiring. And I just know our audience would be listening right now, feeling so inspired and motivated to make that change for themselves.
I hope so. But yeah, and I was at the gates of hell. So like, if you can make the change, and I think the only person that has to be like happy with yourself is you, right?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So I've got 2 questions.
Yep.
Before we wrap things up.
Yeah.
One of them is, would you recommend the 75 hard? I know you have recommended just setting yourself a challenge of some sort that's suitable to your lifestyle.
Yeah.
But do you actually recommend the 75 hard in itself?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it has built incredible self-assurance and discipline within myself. And it's a challenge. It's called the 75 hard challenge. And in a life of complete comfort, I could sit on my couch in the rain and have my favorite food ordered to my door, watching my favorite movie and not have to lift a finger. I think it trains such mental resilience to go, I actually have to walk in the rain today, and that fucking sucks. Or I'm going to have to get up a bit earlier to get this all in my busy day. And when you do that, everything else just seems so much easier. And if you build up, in hindsight, it doesn't feel like a long time. Once you finish it, I promise you, it's 2.5 months. And that could be 2.5 months that completely changes the course of the rest of your life. So I would absolutely recommend it. And you can complete the requirements of the challenge without it being extreme balls to the wall. You set your own meal plan. You just have to stick to it. And so you can tailor the meal plan to say, I'm not going to have takeaway and chocolate for 75 days. And every meal that I have to make at home. That's your meal plan. You can make whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah.
That could be a challenge. So you can make the challenge whatever it is that suits your abilities and needs, but it's the consistency and the habit forming. So I would absolutely recommend it to everyone with that in mind.
So with all of this, right?
Yeah.
It seems like you've unlocked your fullest potential. What is something that this challenge has made you realize that you're capable of? Like, what have you achieved outside of, like, you know, the requirements of the challenge? What is something that you've managed to achieve because of the person that you've become out of all of this?
Great question. Next year, I'm working towards completing my first Ironman, which is going to be in May next year. And Ironman, in my eyes, is, I think, the ultimate mental and physical test. And it's a 4-kilometer swim, 180-kilometer bike ride into a full marathon.
Wow.
It's out of control, and I'm certainly not there yet. But prior to knowing that I could stick to a regimented plan, I would have never been able to approach it. But now I go, I can follow a meal plan and a training plan, and I know how to approach it, I know that I'd be capable of completing that. Yeah. And I wouldn't have ever even questioned or humored that before.
That's incredible.
I
wish you the best of luck with your training. It's really hard, but I am so sure that you'll be able to complete it very well as well.
Thank you. Yeah. And to the person that like used to spend all weekend in bed, I can't believe it.
I was just about to ask you that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, sorry.
No, but you've answered it for me.
Oh.
So if you could go back to your younger self, the one that would spend every weekend in bed,
yeah.
What is one piece of advice that you would give to yourself just to better your health?
Trust and listen to that voice that's begging you to do more with your time. Because what the voice, when I would be lying in bed, the voice that it wasn't beating me up, and it wasn't that voice was egging me on and being kind of like my one champion and my motivator to go like, come on, Tim, you can do it. Like, get up. And like, so, and again, I ultimately did listen to that voice, but tuning into that voice is going, no, I can do better, or I can do more, whatever that means to the individual. And so that, I think that little voice is in all of us, is it not?
Yeah, absolutely it is.
That little voice, there's that bigger voice that's going, just relax, just sit on the couch, do nothing.
Yeah.
It's comfortable here.
Yeah.
But that little voice that goes, come on, no, fight, go. Listen to that voice, because it'll put you in a much better position, I think.
Really good piece of advice.
Thank you.
Tim, thank you so much for joining me on the show. Such a great chat, and such an inspiring chat.
Thank you. We could have done 3 hours.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Every single time. I could talk for days, and I'm sure you can as well.
I'm sure, too much. I'm glad we're ending it here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I loved being a part of it, and I'll see you at the next one.